Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Sunday, August 18th, and we are here discussing healthcare costs in retirement. We have a special guest. If you haven't listened to yesterday's show, do that right now, then come back to us. Ryan Viktorin, she is a certified financial planner and a vice president at Fidelity Investments, and she is here to discuss this annual report that Fidelity puts together. I'm really interested in this report because it really helps people understand just how much it will cost for all of your health care in retirement. And by the way, these are just average numbers. Could be more, could be less. I know, but we might as well plan on it now. Right now, this is part 2 of our interview with Ryan Viktorin. What I'm wondering is this. If you are really nervous about this amount of money that is in the future,
Yep.
And I get that when you're near retirement, the resources, et cetera. But what about this minute? Right now, I am talking to lots of people who are in their 40s and in their 50s, and they're freaked when that number comes out, that 165, that is a big number.
Yes.
What are they to do about, you said, number one, you have anyone who is approaching, basically every worker needs to factor in these costs today.
Correct.
But what else should people be doing?
Yes, absolutely. So first things first, whenever there's a problem, like the first thing you have to know what it is, right? It's like, okay, we have this goal. We know this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, top 5 costs in retirement. Okay. As we approach it. But even for a 40-year-old, one of the best things you can do other than knowing that that number is there and therefore knowing we have to account for it. One of the best tools I guess you can use is something called an HSA, which is a health savings account. Okay.
Yep.
And my clients really find it beneficial to bucket their money into specific goals, right? Like very easy, like a 401k, an IRA. Okay, that's for retirement. An HSA, health savings account, is for healthcare costs down the road. Now, we like to call, there's a triple, tax savings that we talk with these HSAs. And it's important to know, it kind of goes back for the people who do have that high deductible plan I already mentioned. That's who this may be available for. And so the triple tax savings that I was mentioning is that the money goes in tax-free. It can be invested to grow, tax deferred. And then as long as the withdrawals or for qualified medical costs down the road, and you could either use that now or down the road, actually, it also comes out tax-free. So it's a great way to save. Sometimes employers save into it too. Now, that's for the people who do, like I said, have that high deductible plan and they are working and they can do that. Let's say that you don't have access to that. Okay. It's making sure that your savings strategy accounts for that goal.
Yeah.
And saying, we know that you're going to have this cost in retirement. We're going to factor it in down the road. But how do we start to work towards a savings goal? Just like we would work towards trying to, save as much as we possibly can in a 401k, build an emergency fund, build a brokerage account within investments. Sometimes bucketing the healthcare costs can help my clients say, okay, I'm actively working a goal and I can see it. I can see it in that bucket.
So are you suggesting then that all right, I know it's not a big deal because like Fidelity's a massive firm, Vanguard's a massive firm, Charles Schwab's a massive firm. Just open up. You're saying it is maybe helpful, even if you you're not able to participate in a high deductible health plan with an HSA, that you have a separate account that you think of as, hey, this is my future healthcare costs. Is that what you're saying? Because I think that's kind of interesting. I think that people do like that. That's the old spin on it's the Christmas club at your savings bank. It is, it's your retirement fund. But you could just have one big fat brokerage account, right?
Of course you could. Of course you could. And so, but just in that case, you just want to make sure that you are accounting for it in terms of saying, I'm specifically saving for this goal. It's whether it's an HSA, whether you're just saying, okay, I'm just going to grow my money. I'm just going to save as much as I can into one big pile. And then sometimes, my clients do like the idea that it's bucketed because that's what they're used to. A 529 for college, a 401k for retirement. So it is something to think about if you really want to earmark. Same idea for long-term care. Sometimes people think about it for that as well. So it depends on how your brain works. And that's what, I do is what's the best way for you to try to figure this out? how can we make sure that we help you sleep at night throughout this whole process and have peace of mind along the way?
I mean, this funny thing is that like you could conceivably just say, all right, today I'm going to factor in like I spend 10 grand a month right now.
Yep.
And you might just want to be able to say to people, well, okay, you spend 10 grand a month. That's your net that you are bringing home and then spending 10 grand a month. I don't think people are actively saying, I need to add an extra $1,000 a month today or $2,000 a month today. They're not thinking that. When you look at some of those mistakes, besides not accounting for it, is there a mistake you could make from the actual Medicare enrollment part of this?
Yes. So if you really do have to focus on, when you enroll into Medicare, and if you miss it, there can be some penalties affiliated with it. The other mistake I will say is it kind of goes back to IRMA. Some people don't know that IRMA exists, first of all. And so they could, create this, beautiful financial plan, whether it's on their own or with someone where they're trying to do, tax efficient withdrawals. And then all of a sudden they say, oh my gosh, my Medicare cost just went way up because I withdrew too much from a retirement account or whatever it is. So not knowing that IRMA exists, I must say, could be a mistake or just something, to sort of be aware of. And then I must say not accounting for it. But going back to what you were saying before for the people who say, okay, here's my net number, right, that I'm saving from work. That net number probably accounts for the fact that they're paying for health insurance in their paycheck. So what most people kind of don't think about is sometimes what they're paying for right now. So it's just making sure that it's part of the plan down the road. And exactly how you had said before, if you say, I spend $10,000 a month, I would say, neat, I'm going to add $700 for health insurance down the road. It's exactly what, exactly per person, that's exactly what we do.
Let's talk about some resources. I know you're plugging the whole Fidelity thing, so we'll let you plug that.
Sure.
But what about is there anything that you say online? What about going to Medicare? Are there tools? Because, their Social Security system has some cool tools on the website. Is there anything to play with on the Medicare website to look at what you actually would be paying or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, again, we sort of live and breathe this on our side, of course. So on our side, in terms of the Fidelity, it's fidelity.com/Medicare, where you can learn about all of this. There are definitely some online resources as well. But again, the tough part about that is sometimes you go to these sites and you say, perfect, I'm way more overwhelmed than before I entered this site. Neat, and so that's where the specialists really are helpful. There are also insurance exchanges you can speak to as well. And I know there's, seminars all over the place, but it's nice to meet with someone that's talking about your situation as opposed to general, information as well.
You're very young. So when you talk to your older clients and they're already in it, they're in their late 60s, they're in their 70s. Are there any changes that you find that some of the people who come to you have to make because I find that once people enroll, they never change and the plans change every year. So do you find that people do actually need to change and keep up with this stuff?
Yeah, it's a really good point too, because you're exactly right that, you could just enroll and say, oh, great, I did it. I'm all done, but yet, plans change, doctors change, your health situation changes, your spouse's situation changes. So it should be something, again, that should be revisited. And sometimes we find that after a particular age, they just stop checking. I'd have to probably add that. That's a good point. I'd add that to a mistake of saying it's a set it and forget it. Like most things in financial planning, it's usually not that way.
I know.
So just making sure that you're always, sort of up to speed on it. I mean, like with everything too. And in fact, going even back to our study, we find that, Americans age 75 and over, it kind of decreases over time how much they're likely to even check it. And so it's just that reminder to go out there and actually do it. What I also find too is that trying to maintain yourself or your spouse can be very challenging. And especially as women, okay, we have to account for this even more because on average, we outlive men. And especially if you are as part of a couple, on average, we're about 3 or 4 years younger than men. So we could have much, a longer lifespan, a longer time to account for these healthcare costs. but it's also that we might be helping someone review their plan as they get a little bit older. It could be a spouse, it could be a parent. And yeah, it's work, but that's why we have the resources.
Shameless plug for you guys. So anybody who has just a plain old Fidelity account, which is like a good bazillion people, right?
Yeah.
They can go to fidelity.com/Medicare, right?
You got it. That's
okay.
Right.
And if they work with a CFP at Fidelity, this is just incorporated as part of the planning process, right?
Correct. They can also build financial plans online for themselves.
What?
And we have estimates that are in there where there's only 2 categories where if you say, oh my gosh, I need an estimate, you can click a get estimate button within your financial plan, both from a long-term care perspective for sort of averages. And you can get that, again, it's estimated. So is it going to talk about IRMA and the granular? No, it's just plugging it in there. But again, yes, for the clients that I work with, and again, I say the me's across the country, there's like thousands of me's across the country at Fidelity that do this. That's foundational to what we do for our clients.
So if I want to, when you say build your own plan, build my own financial plan, like let's just say for example, I work at CBS News and there's a Fidelity retirement plan that is run through Fidelity. I can build my own regular old broad financial plan or build my own Medicare financial plan.
Oh, really good distinction. Thank you. No, broader, I should say a financial plan or retirement income plan in particular, if we're thinking about, the Medicare eligibility, where you can go on the granular level of put in all of your expenses, including Medicare. And you can estimate really high if you want to. You can add your own IRMA if you really want to, right? Like you can play with it online. In addition to, of course, your income sources that you have in retirement, your assets that you've saved, whether or not they're at Fidelity. So you can, build them in. Because sometimes people have accounts outside or, of course, 401ks or things like that.
Yes. And I've heard there are other companies besides you. I mean,
yes, it turns out there are.
Oddly,
I'm a little biased, but but yes, of course. So you can feed in all of that system. You can even track your expenses on a spending tab. Say, okay, AI, go categorize it for me, and it can all feed into this system. You can do it with someone like me. Again, it doesn't cost you anything. We feel like our clients are entitled to it, and you can also go and build it online. If you do want to find somebody like me, you can go at fidelity.com/find an advisor.
If you've got a question about how to plan for healthcare costs, or maybe you want to really focus on long-term care, this report doesn't cover long-term care, give us a holler. Go to JillOnMoney.com, click the Contact Us button. We'd be delighted to have you join us on the air. If you're on the website, you may want to check out our YouTube show. It's called Jill on Money, powered by The Compound. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Try to do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow.